What if the most important warning in the Bible isn't about chaos, but about peace? Not war, not collapse, not disaster, but calm, stability, agreements, applause. Across history, moments of major change didn't begin with panic. They began with optimism, with treaties, with leaders promising security and progress. Today, new peace frameworks are being discussed. Old barriers are dissolving, and for the first time, ideas once considered impossible are now openly on the table. This video isn't here to convince you of anything. This video does not attempt to predict the future. It does not attempt to assign prophetic identities, and it doesn't ask you to accept any conclusion. Instead, this is an examination of ideas, patterns, and developments that some observers believe are worth paying attention to. You are encouraged to think critically, question assumptions, and reach your own conclusions. Peace as a starting point. When people imagine end-time scenarios, they often picture chaos, wars, disasters, and collapse. But when you actually read the biblical texts that discuss global upheaval, a different picture emerges. Several passages suggest that peace, not panic, precedes the most dramatic shifts. Daniel 9 speaks of a covenant involving many. 1 Thessalonians 5 warns of sudden change following declarations of peace and safety. Revelation 13 describes systems of authority that come later, after trust is established. Taken together, these texts suggest a sequence rather than an explosion. First comes agreement, then consolidation. Only later does conflict appear. This interpretation has led some scholars to argue that the most dangerous phase is not open hostility, but apparent stability. Why Israel is always central. One detail remains consistent across both biblical prophecy and modern geopolitics. Israel occupies a uniquely central position. For thousands of years, global powers have focused disproportionate attention on a relatively small piece of land. Modern diplomacy has not changed that reality. Peace in the Middle East continues to be viewed as a key to broader global stability, economically, politically, and strategically. Because of this, any major peace initiative involving Israel naturally draws attention from those familiar with prophetic texts. This does not mean such initiatives are prophetic fulfillment. It means they are relevant to long-standing discussions. The Abraham Accords and a shift once thought impossible. For decades, Middle East diplomacy operated under a widely accepted assumption: no normalization with Israel until the Palestinian issue was fully resolved. That position held for generations, until it didn't. Beginning in 2020, several Arab nations formally normalized relations with Israel through what became known as the Abraham Accords. These agreements reshaped the political landscape of the region almost overnight. Suddenly, what had been considered unthinkable became reality. At the center of these negotiations was Jared Kushner, acting not as a politician or military leader, but as a diplomatic broker. Once again, this is not an accusation or prophetic claim. It is simply historical context. Why some people took notice. Kushner's involvement raised eyebrows among prophecy observers for one primary reason: method. He did not rise through force. He did not seize authority. He did not threaten. He negotiated. He built relationships. He framed peace in economic and practical terms. That approach mirrors how certain biblical texts describe early stages of global alignment, through agreement, not domination. This similarity does not equal identity, but it does explain why some people began asking questions. Covenant language and why it matters. Daniel 9:27 contains a detail often overlooked in casual discussions. It says a covenant is confirmed, not created. That distinction has fueled debate for decades. Some interpreters argue this suggests the final agreement builds upon something already in existence, a framework, an understanding, or a precedent. Whether that interpretation is correct remains debated. But what is objectively true is this. Frameworks involving Israel and multiple nations now exist where none did before. That alone represents a historic shift. The danger of name spotting. History provides a sobering lesson. Every generation has been convinced it identified the final antagonist. Roman emperors, medieval popes, dictators, presidents, prime ministers. Each time, confidence eventually gave way to correction. Scripture itself never instructs believers to identify individuals prematurely. It emphasizes discernment, not declarations. According to biblical texts, the figure often discussed only becomes unmistakable after very specific actions occur. Betrayal, coercion, self-exaltation, and enforced worship. Until then, speculation remains just that. Systems before power. Another consistent theme in prophetic texts is that authority does not emerge in isolation. It inherits systems, economic systems, political systems, technological systems. The infrastructure must already exist before control can be exercised. In the modern world, discussions about centralized digital currencies, biometric identification, global surveillance, and international governance are no longer science fiction. These systems are actively being developed, often with good intentions, but feasibility matters. What was once impossible is now operational. The psychological climate of the world. The modern world is tired. Tired of war, tired of instability, tired of economic uncertainty, tired of division. History shows that exhausted populations often welcome solutions, even sweeping ones, if they promise relief. This is why certain biblical warnings associate sudden disruption, not with fear, but with confidence. When people believe problems have finally been solved, vigilance often fades. Watching patterns, not personalities. The biblical instruction is remarkably consistent. Watch sequences, watch timing, watch alignment. Do not obsess over individuals. Peace before betrayal, trust before control, admiration before authority. That is the pattern described, not chaos first. Whether current events represent fulfillment, preparation, or coincidence is not something this video claims to answer. But the alignment of ideas is observable. Why sensationalism fails? There is a real danger in constant alarm. When every leader is labeled as the final villain, the warning loses meaning. Jesus himself cautioned against false alarms, not because danger would never come, but because clarity would matter when it did. Fear weakens discernment. Hysteria clouds judgment. Prophecy was never meant to produce panic. The often missed center. One of the most important corrections to make is this. Biblical prophecy is not centered on an antagonist. It is centered on Christ. The contrast is intentional. One figure appears briefly. The other reigns eternally. One offers control disguised as peace. The other offers peace rooted in truth. If analysis causes fixation on darkness rather than alignment with light, the focus has shifted incorrectly. The instruction that remains. Jesus' instruction was not to panic. It was to watch. Watching does not mean fear. It means awareness. It means staying grounded in truth rather than trends. It means resisting distraction when comfort tempts complacency. Scripture consistently calls for depth, not surface-level belief, borrowed conviction, or cultural affiliation. A parallel often overlooked. Interestingly, the Bible also suggests that as deception increases, so does clarity. Darkness and light intensify simultaneously. While systems consolidate, faith spreads. While control frameworks grow, spiritual awakening occurs. These two movements are not sequential. They overlap. This is why the final chapters of Scripture do not end in despair. They end in assurance. Final perspective. So what are we actually watching? Perhaps not fulfillment. Perhaps not coincidence. Perhaps preparation. Or perhaps simply history unfolding in familiar ways. The question is not whether a specific person fits a role. The question is whether the conditions described long ago are becoming increasingly plausible. And that question deserves thoughtful attention. Closing thought. Bible prophecy was never meant to produce obsession. It was meant to produce readiness. Not fear of the future, but faithfulness in the present. The world may continue to search for peace through agreements, systems, and leadership. But the central claim of Christianity remains unchanged. True peace does not come from structure alone. It comes from transformation. So stay alert, stay thoughtful, stay grounded. History rarely announces itself while it's happening. Feel free to express your opinions in the comments section. But please, be respectful. If you enjoyed the thought-provoking style of this video, hit the like button and share it with someone you think would benefit from it. But right now, YouTube thinks you will benefit from watching this video next. Thanks for joining me.